Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Mortimer. I'm the Global President at Advertising Week. And it doesn't really matter what job you do these days, video is going to be part of it. Whether it's full-scale creative productions or whether you're producing short videos for marketing assets, it's really key. You really need to know how to make video work for you. But so many teams find that video production can be stressful. So today we're going to learn how to get really efficient with video production and how to really maximize your time. Now, I'm not the expert here, so let me welcome QuickFrame by Mountain expert Aston Ford, who is Manager of Creator Operations. Aston, welcome. You're going to make me able to create Hollywood blockbusters after this, right?
Yes, by the end of this, you'll be producing in your sleep.
Okay, you heard Aston. He's promised Hollywood blockbusters. You're coming my way. Now, please do make a note while Aston's talking of all the tips he's giving you, so you can ask him lots of questions as he goes through and tells you everything you need to know about how to be absolutely brilliant at video production. Aston, over to you.
Thank you so much. So welcome everybody today. Super excited about what we're going to be talking about. In this webinar, we'll explore three key high-level topics. How streamlined video production can maximize time and budgets, strategies for bringing efficiencies into the production process, and how external creative resources can enhance the capabilities of any marketing team. And as we get started, one of the first questions that I want to ask you is, where's the bandwidth? I don't know if you guys remember the Where's the Beef Lady. She was featured in a famous Wendy's ad campaign in the 1980s that became a huge pop culture moment. The ad was a hit because there was something genuinely relatable about her anger over expecting one thing, but being given something else that didn't quite meet her needs. We've thought about her a lot lately, not just because it's one of the most well-known campaigns of all time, and all of us are always looking to replicate things that we have seen work in the past, but also because it's an interesting metaphor for what's happening within the marketing departments across the advertising industry. If the Where the Beef Lady just wanted a better burger to bun ratio, then all marketers want now is more time, resources, and support to do their jobs effectively as the market for content changes. And this is something that QuickFrame by Mountain is constantly responding to. The media landscape is always changing. How we produce is always changing along with it. So that's why the biggest question on the marketing world's mind in 22 is, where's the bandwidth? So to get started, we're going to talk about some of the top challenges that marketers face today. A 2021 report on the state of creative management by the American Marketing Association identified top 3 challenges facing creative marketers. The speed at which their creatives work, which I think is something that we've all felt. It's always crunch time. We're always trying to release content in a timely manner, which goes hand in hand with this second point, a lack of adequate resources to accomplish the work. So as we're having to work faster, we're simultaneously having less resources to work with. And that's coupled with the changes that we're seeing in the video marketplace, right? There's a higher demand now than ever for creative content. There are more platforms that we are working on. There's a constant need to test content, iterative content, optimize for different platforms. So there's more to do than ever before. And 58% of marketers said that they face larger workloads from 2019 into 2020. And that number has only grown as the demand for content continues to grow. Some of the driving factors of this is the fact that CTV has become the fastest growing advertising channel, which is why it's been so exciting also for QuickFrame and partnering with Mountain as we've expanded from doing so much social content and to now seeing how the ways that we have learned how to produce high amounts of social content can now affect the way that we're looking at CTV content. And social platforms like Instagram are converting their user interfaces into video-first experiences to keep the pace with emerging social titans like TikTok. So now that even these photo-first platforms are starting to leverage video more and more, there's more of a need. And again, there's more platforms than ever before. And we're constantly trying to optimize for these platforms, figure out what different audiences are on each of these platforms, and catering to each of them in a different way. And there's a large expectation, with this change and with this addition to video and so many facets of the consumer experience, that they'll be delivered, well, they're expecting to be delivered video in every stage of the buying journey. Everywhere from seeing a CTV ad to being served something similar on a social post, to then once we've driven the conversion, even on an e-com website, seeing videos of the actual product that they're about to purchase. So in all three of those touch points, video has been used, and each version of video is going to be a little different. So with all of that, there's always been a traditional way to approach video. And some of those processes, what QuickFrame has found and the way that we structure a lot of our things, is that some of those things have been holding us back now that there are more places to advertise than ever before. To put it another way, we're all overworked, right? So why do marketers need more bandwidth? Because you, me, and probably everyone else on this call is feeling a little overworked right now. And that increases as we enter into the holiday season, when there's even more content that needs to be specialized and optimized for multiple platforms. And so over the last 2 years, marketers have been consistently asked to do more with less. Between the pandemic, increased privacy regulations, and an unshakable feeling of economic uncertainty across pretty much virtually every industry, the potential for a steep downturn in consumer spending is a bit of a cause for alarm. This has led to hiring plans being upended, and the resources that marketers are typically accustomed to have dwindled away. Between 2020 and 2021, marketing budgets were cut on average of 11% to 6%, and the pandemic on top of that just exacerbated staffing issues. So all of these different things are all converting into these specific instances of needing more content with smaller teams across more platforms, which you'll see is the main theme of what we're going to be talking about in a minute. And with the lack of resources and an increased workload as the demand for video advertising grows, your marketing departments are consistently feeling more squeezed to produce all of the content. And this can quickly lead into a work-life balance that can become unmanageable. And we got to find ways to make this work and adjust with the times as the times adjust around us. So the question that you're probably asking is, how can marketing leaders support stressed out teams? As fears of inflation and recession spread through Adland and across every other industry, brands need to identify efficiencies that will maximize budgets and streamline the production process without depleting the bandwidth of your marketing department. It's a tall order. Everyone's trying to figure out how to do it, but it's not impossible. Because this is also what we found. This is how we approach streamlining video. And we want to share some of our trade secrets with you. So the remainder of this, we'll walk through each step of the production process to give you a clear idea of where efficiencies lie as you strategize your campaign. We maintain a healthy work-life balance here across all of our marketing teams, and so can you. So as we start with any form of video, pre-production is where everything comes into play. So it's exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a stage where you sketch out your game plan for your campaign. This includes identifying clear-cut campaign goals, which is super important, even though that goes without saying. It's super important to start looking at ways that you can package different shoots, or look at alternative video formats that are all geared towards ultimately reaching your video goals, but maybe not in the original way that you thought. As opposed to the normal live action spot that most of us are seeing on CTV, you can start looking at alternative video formats, whether that be UGC style content, animation, stop motion, what have you. As long as the campaign goals are clear cut, you can get a little more creative about the way that you ultimately get to those goals. And also maximizing the budget. My grandfather used to always say, you measure twice and cut once. So we also want to do that with our budgets. Think about all the variables, all the factors, everything that we have coming up in the year, to start finding efficiencies again on how we can package multiple shoots together, build libraries of footage that we can use in post-production projects throughout the year, and things like that. Another thing is creating a schedule that sets you up for success. Like we already mentioned, we all know the holiday push. We all know that there are times in the year where the creative talent that you're looking for, whether that be directors, videographers, actors, designers, everyone's squeezed because everyone's trying to get that content out right before Black Friday. So also looking at your schedule over a year and starting to figure out, can you shoot some of this footage for certain campaign launches prior to that strong demand that we feel at different times in the market. And as video professionals at QuickFrame, we find that this pre-production is always the most important step. So the more time that you spend in pre-production for a specific project and also looking at your projects over the year, the better off that you're going to be. You can have an ingenious concept, but if you don't have the budget and the support for your teams, your campaign is going to be dead in the water before you even hit sale. So maximizing your existing budget may sound like a tall order, but there's several things that you can go ahead and start doing. You want to look for opportunities to cut the fat from your production schedule to ensure that you have low-cost solutions to big budget problems. So this is where that pre-planning and looking at your year plan really comes into play. And also trimming the fat. And this can happen on a shoot-by-shoot basis. Like we've already mentioned, some of the traditional aspects of video production we're finding are becoming outdated. For looking at alternative video formats like UGC style video that's super talent driven, we've looked at ways that we can cut out things like hair and makeup or wardrobe. Look into options where maybe you can have your talent send in their normal makeup look or options from their own wardrobe and have them coming to set ready to go and ready to shoot. So just looking for things that you can do or cut out in some of these shoots is going to extend your budget a lot farther. And the biggest thing that QuickFrame does a lot and that I encourage all of you to do is shooting for multiple platforms at once. Looking at ways that you can find concepts that are geared toward those campaign goals that you've identified early on in your year and figuring out how you can shoot for, a good example would be like Meta Reels content and TikTok content. The content styles themselves are very similar. The main differences that are going to be coming from those two different streams of content are going to be in post because mainly you're just looking at the different text treatments for the different platforms. So as opposed to shooting something for TikTok and then shooting something for Meta later in the year, look at your annual plan and the platforms that you're looking at and find a way that you can shoot for, maybe even CTV content, Meta content, and TikTok content all in one day. And this, most of this comes from, shooting in multiple aspect ratios. But again, if you're focused on the goals behind your concepts, it's a lot easier to get to the meat of what you're trying to do and then optimize that for different platforms. Another thing that we encourage you to do is to review your historical production costs. One way that you can start maximizing your budget is to look at where you've been and ask yourself, how much are you already spending on your video creative? Run an audit on your historical production budgets, focusing on key metrics that drive up campaign costs. Because we talked about with trimming the fat, looking at those higher cost pieces are going to be the first place that we could start reallocating some of that budget into other places and also saving time from our in-house teams. Doing a post-mortem of sorts after video campaigns have wrapped up will surface line items that may have been extraneous. Some of these big pieces that can really drive this up or places where you can start figuring out ways to reallocate some of that money is really getting specific about your KPIs. One of them is really getting specific about your KPIs. Determining the goals of your campaign will help you decide what type of video you want to produce, platforms that you want your creative to run on, and how many versions of the video you need to generate to make the greatest impact on your objectives. So again, if we know that we are focusing on doing something audience first, that's talent first, and you decide that you want to try your hand at UGC content, which I would advise everyone to look into, not only is it a low cost version of video, but you have to focus on the fact that UGC video is very specific in the relationship that you're building with your audience. It's not so much making them feel like they're being advertised to, but more like you're sharing your product and how it can benefit them, sort of like how a friend would. So if you're looking at, the type of video and your goals, it's really easy to start looking at alternative video formats and looking at which channels are going to serve you best and what performs the best on those channels. So with those channels, we're looking at what video performs best on these channels, how we can bucket it, and how we could focus on doing iterative content, not only for those specific launches, but for other platforms. And that's something that we'll talk about a little later with post-production, is how we can set ourselves up to not only be producing content specific from that shoot, correlating directly to a launch, but also how throughout the year and throughout our shoots, we can gather libraries of footage so you can have other things that you can run in market in between some of these larger launches and these big campaigns, since the name of the game is getting in front of your audience as much and as often as you can. So another big cost driver and thing to really look at in terms of the way that it's serving you and your goals is your concepting and the way that you approach this concepting phase in general. Your concept determines pretty much everything from your location to requiring any special sets or props, as well as the kind of talent and the production crew that you need to hire. So if you focus more on what you want this video to do or say, and less on having an idea of a concept and going out and just producing that concept, you'll find that you'll have a lot more flexibility with the way that you can approach this. Not every shoot and not every campaign launch needs to have all of the bells and whistles. If you're focusing on reinforcing your brand story or testifying to a particular product's usefulness, the more that you focus on that end goal and less on the idea of, let's say, some grandiose concept, the better off that you're going to be. And then also looking at if it's tied to a specific date or holiday where you can get ahead of that rush, like we've already mentioned. And also looking at, does everything need to look highly polished and effects heavy? We found that, not everything that you run on YouTube is going to perform well on TikTok. And the name of the game for content that's made on TikTok is that it needs to look native to the platform. So more often than not, especially when we produce some content for TikTok, sometimes that content is shot on the phone. And the content that is shot on the phone is what performs well on that platform. So start looking at, the platforms that you are advertising at and really starting to look at if there are ways that might be non-traditional that you can prepare that content to run on that platform. And then location. Another big cost, something that can really drive up that cost, is where you're shooting the content. The location of your production will be determined by a number of factors, from the visual look to the narrative arc of your ad, also to the video type that you choose. And some of the important creative but logistical ramifications for your shoot is going to be the accessibility of your location. Are there additional permits? Because there are some cities, especially in California, where shooting even in a home within some of those neighborhoods has additional permits, has additional considerations, insurances, and license to purchase, things like that. So looking at locations that are out of the way in terms of any sound disturbances, already have a good amount of existing natural light, will not only help you on your shoot day, but also help you figure out what really works for you in terms of housing these concepts. And a good piece of advice, and something that we see a lot with creative briefs across the board, is as opposed to looking at multiple locations, look at the number of settings that you can utilize. So say if we're shooting in a home, as opposed to shooting in a home and then having to strike and then set up in another location to shoot at a park, and then striking and setting up at another location to maybe shoot outdoors on a trail or an office location, or whatever is specific to your business vertical, look at how you can set up one-day shoots that utilize multiple settings in one location. So one-family homes are a great example. You can find a beautiful location and then figure out how you can take those goals, again, those goals that you're focusing on more than your concepts, find a location that has multiple settings and figure out how you can intersect those things. Maybe you are shooting in the kitchen, the bathroom, and the living room, and then also in the backyard. So you have 4 different sets of content that can be ran at different times that won't appear as if you are using the same space for everything. And so the more that you focus on settings and the less that you focus on locations, the more that you'll be able to find some efficiencies specifically around what you're shooting. And then another big cost driver is going to be talent. Talent can range from professional actors and models to real customers, animals, children, there's a whole spectrum. And each kind of talent comes with their own unique set of cost drivers, from handler fees when you're working with animals, to extended timeline considerations when you're working with children, because a lot of states have different regulations around, how long a child of a certain age can be on set, to the day rates of the professional union actors. So questions to consider, do you want, your agency talent, or do you need them? We found a lot of success with looking at real people talent, because one of the main assurances of working through agency talent is, you kind of have that quality control from their representation by that agency. So one thing that we would recommend is to start leveraging alternate channels for finding talent. Backstage is a good option, and you can still find some quality control in requiring that the talent that you're using submit self-filmed tapes, so you can see how they're delivering their lines to make sure that you feel like they would represent your brand properly. But there are alternative channels to finding talent that can offer you the same kind of quality level that you're looking for. And then also where we would recommend that you look into that agency talent is really when you're looking for certain skills. As a singer, a dancer, a professional chef, someone with very specific capabilities. Those are times when you might need to go through an agency, and of course, pay those extra agency costs. But a lot of times, if you're doing UGC content or something else talent-driven, lifestyle, something product-focused, you can really get away but really also find really quality content through quality talent through alternative channels. And also get really specific about the equipment that you're using. That's another huge cost driver. Not everything needs to be shot on a red. Not everything needs to, go through the traditional technology streams. Like I said, some of the stuff that we do for UGC content for different platforms oftentimes can be shot on a phone. Super high quality capture. Technology is changing so much. So really look into other ways that you can capture this content that, again, feels native to the platform that you are advertising on. Another important thing to consider if you've run a video campaign before, did you go over budget? Which is, the easiest way to look at it. Looking back on your historical production costs and figuring out where your budget ballooned is where you need to prioritize bringing those costs down. So if you're seeing that your locations are always, running the gambit of your budget, or if you're finding that oftentimes you overemphasize the amount of content that you can shoot in one day, and then you're looking at having to do multiple shoot days when you didn't plan to, you can look at, again, looking at doing multiple settings in a location to save time between the striking and the setting up, isolating your creative to one location, scaling back your big picture concept, and again, focusing on the ethos, the message, and the end goal of that content, rather than be married to a specific concept or a specific production type. This will help you better understand just how big or small you can go with your video. And then the next thing is you really need to establish clearly defined goals and concepts. That is, like we mentioned, the more planning that you do in the beginning, the better. And when it comes to goals, I'd say that the goals are really what's going to be the thing that is going to, really dictate everything else, and where you can always go back to figure if there's something that you really need to do, or if there's a certain amount of production value that you really need in terms of it's still accomplishing your goals. So define the purpose of your campaign, the platforms you want your ad creative to run on, and the goals that you wish to achieve. Establishing clear KPIs will not only help in crafting that concept, but also just kind of having that general direction that you're going. It provides a richer understanding of the amount of footage that you'll need. And again, when you're planning, not only what you're shooting now, but how you can also use and leverage pieces of this content in the future, it's good to keep that in mind. When crafting your creative concept, always remain conscious of your budget. Know that because of certain considerations, your shoot may run longer, cost more, and especially if your concept is requiring special talent, animals, multiple locations, props, or costumes. That's a lot of the fat that we're talking about that you can trim out if you focus solely on the goal that you are trying to accomplish. And then let's get into a couple of other things about pre-production that are probably pieces that a lot of us, already do or are already thinking about, but it's good to go into specifics about how these things can help you. So always storyboard your concept. As we all know, storyboard is that step-by-step, kind of comic book structure of your video ad. It shows a shot-by-shot of how the camera will move, how the shoot will be blocked, and where graphics and titles will be interspersed. And not only does this help creatively in terms of planning, but it also saves you a lot of time on set with approvals. It ensures that you get proper coverage, and it saves you a lot of time in post. because then you can really look at, building what we'll talk about a little later is a library of footage. Looking at how can you not only shoot that particular concept, but since you are already there, since you already have the talent going and the camera's hot, go ahead and start using some of those sets to go ahead and start collecting things to use in the future. And then our favorite thing, the meat of everything, is know what goes in your creative brief. According to a study from Better Briefs, 90% of marketers and agencies agree that the brief is one of the most valuable yet most neglected tools to create good work. And there's a disparity with the way that everyone thinks about it. We all know about its importance, but the way that some marketers are thinking about filling them out, and the need of ad agencies and the need of creatives to fully understand what's going on, there's a little bit of disconnect. 80% of marketers believe that they write effective, good briefs, while just 10% of creative agencies will agree with that point. Writing a quality brief can clear up confusion that will arise when you're entering into that pre-production phase. And the other reason why briefs are so important is because, as marketers, you're not the person who's on set the most is the creative that you're employing to work with you and collaborate with you on the spot. The more background that you give them, the more information that you give them on goals, what has performed in the past, what channels you're looking to advertise on, the more that even they can bring efficiencies on how to produce this content with you, once they have a full picture. So some of the things that you will want to emphasize in your brief is always the overall campaign. Where are we going with this? What is the intent of this footage? What is this launch for? And then also start thinking about how the footage that you're capturing in a specific launch can also be leveraged for other campaigns in the future. And that lends itself into the goals that you want to achieve, creative concepts that you already have in mind. And in mind is a really important part of that. I'd recommend that when you're doing these concept things, start with high-level concepts that are tied to those goals, but leave some flexibility for those goals for those concepts to shift and change a little bit throughout the creative process. Because one thing that we see a lot is that some marketers will try and use things that has worked for them on a different channel and try to bring exactly that into a new platform, which isn't always going to yield you the best performance. And like I said, again, giving your creatives full context, an idea of where you're going, an idea of what you're looking to shoot, and just keeping it really high level, you'll get more collaboration with, of course, how to accomplish shooting that, how to shoot it together to leverage for other platforms. And then there's also efficiencies when you're on set, because they're the ones that are spending the most time on set. And one thing that is super important to us is examples of past creative. We say at QuickFrame, we talk in video, we work in video, we think in video, we communicate in video. Being able to show a creative a couple of different things, an example of the video type that you're looking at, right? So what does a lifestyle video mean to you? What does a testimonial style mean to you? When we're talking about product specific, what does that mean? And then looking at a different set of examples that communicate what you like about different kinds of content. Examples to say, we really like this pacing. We really like the brand delivery here. We really like the tone at which this was written. And then that plus examples of past creative that has worked well really allows a creator to have enough information to be able to collaborate with you and really lean into that ideal concept with those goals and what has worked in the past to start figuring out where you're going in the future. And that, and also, what platforms it's running on, just to figure out and start finding those efficiencies, like we've mentioned with, how can you shoot multiple concepts and multiple things, and also repurpose things across platforms. And as you'll find, efficient planning equals streamlined production. Maximizing your budget in the pre-production stage will set you up for success when you're moving into productions. There's less questions, everything's set up, you're able to be nimble and deal with things as they come up. So in this production stage, we're looking, of course, at shooting the actual footage, working with your creators, communicating with your crew members, your designers, your photographers, and everyone to start painting this full picture of what you're trying to accomplish. And the best way to save your team's bandwidth during production is going to be twofold. Plan your deliverable at the start. To maximize your budget in post-production, you really want to look at every single thing that you are planning on running, regardless of the platform. So this is, of course, why the storyboard comes in really handy, because knowing what deliverables your campaigns will need will ensure that you don't forget about any specific aspect ratios, video lengths, or file types. Because, think about it, once you get on set, you want to maximize the output of the amount of time that you are spending with your creators and, with all the money that you're spending on that location and that crew. So this will eliminate a lot of time, the need for reshoots, edits, new animations, pickup shots, things like that. And it goes without saying that if your creators have to go back again and again to shoot more footage or to find little pieces because we didn't think through, thinking like, since we are here, what else can we capture? If we don't think through that, your schedule can quickly get derailed when there are more things that need to get picked up later. And second is going to be capture all of the footage that you need in a single shoot. Because with clearly defined goals and a list of deliverables, you can design a production plan to capture a wide variety of footage for every video asset that you'll need. This goes from multiple aspect ratios to run on different platform, to testing things out with different talent. Because when you're optimizing for the platform, that's also something that you're looking at. The demographic that is running on TikTok is going to be significantly different from the demographic that we're looking at on, let's say Snapchat or YouTube or something of the sort. So being able to know, who you're advertising to, the sort of content that runs on these different platforms, the aspect ratios you're planning for, the talent, the scripts, what messaging are you pushing. You actually be surprised how much you can capture in one shoot day once you start thinking about your process in that fashion. And one way to ensure that you're getting all of the footage you'll need for your campaign is by creating an exhaustive shot list that details every single scene that you think that you're going to need based on your audience, your goals, your messaging points, the platforms that you want to run on. For instance, if you're running an ad on both YouTube and TikTok, you want to make sure that you capture footage and work both in 16:9 and in 9:16. And if you think about it, if you're on set, you're running this one concept, the script is the same. It's really easy, if you can shoot high def enough to shoot wide and then keep all of your content in the middle, you can punch in from 16:9 to 9:16, and then you have two videos for one. Or even if you are running through a script with talent one, concept one, shoot that once with the camera in 9:16, swap it out, switch your aspect ratio, shoot the same concept in 16:9, and then you're really starting to maximize how much you can capture in that one shoot day. And then you can also look at your iterative testing, whether that is testing different scripts, doing things with different talent. As that set is up, just make sure that you can get all of it, that you can get as much out of being on that set as possible, which is why that shot list comes in, because you can look at alternates and little things that you can do to start building out a library of footage that you can use not only in post-production for that specific project, but you can also use for projects that will come in the future that you don't have to shoot net new content for because you've already masked this library of footage. To stay budget conscious, you can create your shot list by going through your script and going through your testing, and just aim to be as specific as possible, right? So we've collaborated on the concept. Everyone understands the full goals. We've talked to our creator to start working through, what can we realistically capture here if we're interested in building out a library of footage? How can we repurpose some of those things? Or like we even mentioned, if you're getting ahead of the curve for a specific holiday launch, how, when you're shooting for something evergreen, can you swap out a few propping elements or, put in a different script and go ahead and start capturing content to get ahead of the holiday rush when timelines are harder, budgets are higher, and everyone is, working longer days to try and get that content out the door. Your team will really thank you for that one. So having an efficient production schedule is a strategy that QuickFrame by Mountain deploy with healthcare services brand Nurex. With clear goals in mind to improve direct response performance and increase their brand awareness. Wait, to make sure there we go. With clear goals to improve that brand awareness and their performance, we strategize a robust plan that would capture all of the essential footage at once. This creative framework to test multiple variables with the campaigns that they had live so we can pinpoint what was pushing the needle. And then on top of that, you're testing those variables across multiple platforms from content that was shot in one day that all looks like it could be a different campaign because you utilize multiple settings within that one location. So the data they were able to collect was a 33% reduction in CPA during the campaign, a 31% lower CPA than their original goal, and a 2x increase in ad spend while maintaining a positive ROI. So when you're seeing things like that happen, and you're able to collect that data faster and with spending less money, you know that your process is starting to work. Okay, and last but not least, where all of the magic really comes together, we're going to talk about post-production. So how can you be more efficient in your post process? And the planning phase is really important for setting up where you're going. The production phase is really important for maximizing what you can do on set. But if you have done everything that you can do in that pre and production process, you can really go really wide with your capabilities in post-production. So, post-production includes everything from, editing, sound mixing, color correction. So this is really where the magic happens, right? And it requires specialized talent like editors or animators, people who do get busy, but also can work really fast. So the extra days that you are putting behind these editors, whether that's in-house or out of house, that's extra money that you're spending. So being able to be really clear cut about your plan and about how you want things put together and having those libraries of footage and things is going to be really important to maximize your time that you're spending with these editors. And so repurposing footage is a big thing. One of the best ways to keep video production costs down is by repurposing assets through post-production editing, right? So if you think about it, you went wide with your goals, you identified concepts to accomplish specific things, but kept them open-ended. So you're able to work with your creator and figure out efficiencies on set. Now you can start collecting a library of footage throughout different shoots and slowly start accumulating things throughout the year. What you end up with is a lot of different footage that you can piece together with new copy, new messaging. You can test your shot order, and in between some of your larger launches, you could start to depend on just pulling your library of footage and getting something new to run in market that you can easily test with the pieces that you've accumulated, which can give your marketing teams a little bit of breathing room, in between, some of the larger initiatives. So yeah, all about repurposing the footage. That means you're taking the existing footage or stills from previous campaigns and editing to make them a brand new asset. It's super cost efficient. It's super time efficient. And you already have some ideas of what worked with the original assets that you ran in market. So now you're building this knowledge of how the footage that you've already captured has performed on different platforms. So your testing can go even deeper once you're taking the learnings from the first round of those assets and now applying it to the second round of post. So yeah, it's super exciting. You can see how over time that really leads to a lot of efficiencies and a lot of time saved. And QuickFrame, and we really saw a lot of this during the pandemic, when during COVID we couldn't shoot new content, so a lot of marketers were more open to trying to repurpose existing footage because we had no other option. And that's when everyone started realizing how much of a benefit it really is to take those libraries of footage and start to get creative with them, rather than everyone loves something shiny and new. We all want shiny and new creative. We have big concept ideas. But there's a lot to be said for reusing footage over time. And that's why also building that footage library over time, whether that be for a specific launch, evergreen, whatever, that really puts you into a better place later in the game. And then on top of that, as we're looking through post-production and as we're looking at how we can repurpose these existing libraries of footage, you want to be really strategic with your testing. So with a performance marketing approach, you can test and iterate ad creative throughout the entire campaign. So again, on set, you can test things like, in one setting, running through a couple of different scripts with the same talent, trying it with a different talent and a different demographic, and pulling in those pieces of these different sets of footage, and then start looking at how you can not only take those on-set variations between the videos, but now start coupling that with post-production variations, which is all about the copy and things that you can do in the editing process. And now what you can do with this amount of footage across multiple channels is so much greater than what you could have done in the past, because now you're running these existing assets and you're using this existing library of footage, but you're able to get learnings from them almost as if you're running this creative for the first time in market. And also on top of that, optimization isn't a one-stop deal. It's an ongoing process. So as you're launching these campaigns across different platforms and learning what works and learning about the different audiences that you're catering to these different platforms, you can make these iterations and increase your performance on the fly. This saves time and bandwidth, like we've mentioned. It can give some breathing room, and you can run this content as long as you can refresh them by using these alternates that you captured because you planned so well in pre-production that you're able to maximize your time on set. And so through multiple campaigns with learnings from testing and building libraries of footage for post-production process, your team is also going to become smarter over time. You can get efficient with your creative once it's in the can to expand into new platforms. And like we already mentioned, content made on 9x16 for TikTok can easily be moved across other video first channels like Instagram and Snapchat. And so now you're able to compare, this performed so well on this channel, what version of this on this channel is going to perform well on this channel, right? And then that becomes a really almost fun game to start figuring out how you can put these pieces together. So this means that you're not having to create necessarily unique content for each channel, especially as the TikTokification of all of these video platforms is also ongoing. It's starting to create more of a unified video first experience, but now you're focusing on what performs best in these markets, even using the same video style. And so also what you want to look at in-house efficiency outside of your team. Because a lot of the bandwidth issues are exacerbated by the fact that many businesses in our industry are bringing more of their advertising in-house. So this can create workflow problems if you're unable to tap into the efficiencies and resources because you can't scale without burning your teams out. And there's also downtimes in the year when you're especially like a post team might not be doing as much work as they might be doing during other parts of the year. A study on the current state of creative marketers found that 76% of organizations handle 75% or more of their work in-house, which, as we see it, is a huge limit to what you can actually accomplish. And even with that, 86% of creative teams will also at times hire external creative partners, either because they need a specific skill set that they don't have in-house, they need an increased capacity for a certain time of year, or just to help get work done more expeditiously. Right? So we're not designing for using these out-of-house people, but also finding that using out-of-house creative is a fundamental aspect of the process. And this is where creative marketplaces can really be a really effective lever for marketing departments to find new sources of bandwidth. These marketplaces can increase production bandwidth on demand. It's something that you're building for as you meet new teams to produce new content. The marketplace has an ever-ending expanse of different creatives that specialize in different business vertical, different types of video. So you can really find someone that can deliver on what you're trying to accomplish. And that's also when you can find people that, when you have those loose open-ended concepts and those overarching goals can help you with your efficiency because they've spent so much time producing this sort of content and looking at producing this sort of content for multiple platforms. So this also, you can produce videos in different styles. You can work just as hard at pushing your live action offering while also testing how your target audience might respond to some animation, and then also start looking at other things that are shot practically in person, like stop motion content. And the other good thing, especially as you look at expanding into different markets, the localization capabilities of a creator marketplace is going to be so much greater than what you can accomplish in-house, or even by going to someone that's like close enough. And you don't have to send your team to a specific production location. You're finding someone boots on the ground who understands the market, understands the cultural nuances of the place that you're trying to go, understands, the small differences in accents and languages and things like this. And a marketplace is able to provide all of those options. So you're able to always optimize not only your creative, what you're trying to do, but also the creator that you're using with that creative. So don't think of creator marketplaces as replacements for your team. Think of them as a very significant enhancement that we have already proven in the industry is a necessity. So your team can reclaim bandwidth to dedicate to other areas of focus. This is focusing on those overarching goals. This is focusing on planning out how you can collect content throughout an entire year. So when the big, November, December holiday rush, you're prepared, you're ready to go, focusing on making your briefs more robust, focusing on communicating with your creators more in depth, focusing on testing strategies and robust testing plans and tracking that data, and really being able to lean then on the creative's expertise, which is really important. And so for some of our conclusions, I skipped one. Yeah, so some of our key takeaways is to be optimistic about Adland's near future. Despite looming threats of a recession as inflation tightens consumer belts across the market, this is not directly correlating with a decrease in ad spend like some industry marketers are feeling. Insider intelligence predicts that ad spend will actually increase 13.2% year over year in 2022. This finding is supported by the fact that recession-inspired cost conscious in the ad space typically don't last, which we have seen historically. When comparing past recessions, an Age ad report discovered that the industry will regularly course correct on economic downturn into a tailwind of growth. Some examples of this is following the Great Depression, when ad spend dropped by 18% in 1933, the industry saw an outstanding 24.5% increase the following year. And during the financial crisis of 2008, ad spend plummeted by 10.2% in 2009, before rebounding in 2010 with an increase of 8.8%. And to bring us to today, after the COVID-19 pandemic caused ad spend to spiral downwards by 7.5% in 2020, it immediately rebounded by almost 20% the next year. So while you might be feeling a short-term squeeze in how to accomplish all of this, the resources that you're working with, the industry predicts that it won't turn into a long squeeze in the coming years. So even by changing the way that you're approaching these processes and approaching content creation now will even help you twofold in years when we have a little more resources at our disposal. But in the meantime, your marketing departments need anything they can to help out with these processes. And again, just to recap, you can give it to them through a pre-production plan that maximizes your budget and gets ahead of future needs, a streamlined production process that optimizes your team's time and resources, a post-production schedule that lets you work smarter, not harder, and utilize the footage that you've captured in an iterative process, and explaining and expanding your in-house teams to leverage creator marketplaces as a supplemental addition that can take some of the heavy lifting off of their plate and also lead to further optimization. And so with all of that, I'll welcome back Ruth for us to handle some questions that you guys have been sending in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Aston. And you have got a flood of questions. So I think it's pretty clear that everyone has issues with their video production and they need you to fix it right now. So let's start off. First of all, Robert said, speaking of costs, is there a style of video which is a good low-cost starting point for a brand's first video campaign?
Yeah, so one of the best low-cost versions of video is going to be UGC content, right? Super talent-driven, doesn't necessitate a lot of cropping. The locations aren't too specific. And also, like I mentioned earlier, the great thing about UGC video is not only is it low cost, not only does it not need a lot of bells and whistles, but what you can do is engage with your target audience in a way that most advertisers aren't. You know, everything that is normally produced, super traditional live action, a lot of people feel like they're being talked to, but by leveraging UGC video, you can find a lower form of production while also engaging with your network or your target audience in a much more personal way. So it's a good low cost option, and then it also has a bunch of other great benefits.
Something I wanted to mention is often UGC, often people think also of creators. Now, Jamie has asked, do brands like to be hands-on when working with creators? And do creators actually actively welcome brands playing a role in the creative process?
Well, yeah, so it's going to vary a lot. You know, there needs to be a good middle ground of collaboration between both of these groups of people. But, you know, so a lot of our creators do actually like having someone from the client side on set because they're able to make sure that they're approaching the brand properly, able to make sure that everything is dressed properly, and the little nuances of how to push a product are really spoken to. And then on the client's end, yeah, always wanting to be involved, always wanting to collaborate with the creators. And so as long as we're having collaboration where everyone's expertise is coming together in the middle, both groups, from our experience, will welcome that.
And I really enjoy. I'm hoping nobody who works with me has asked it, which is, what do you think brands typically do wrong in video production? And what's the big mistakes we should avoid?
That's a great question. What I'd say oftentimes when doing something wrong is getting too married to a concept, not for the purpose of what it actually means for your goals, but just wanting some flashy new creative that might match a brand that you've seen in the past or someone that you've seen produce in the past. And focusing less on your concept, on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, and focusing more on creating some grandiose production. Because oftentimes what we can see is from some of the lower scales of production, depending on which platform you're advertising on, you can see a greater benefit to creating content that is less produced, but engages your network and engages your target audience on a much higher level.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Keep the concept in mind, the KPIs in mind. Don't just think about creating some big Hollywood blockbuster, like I was hoping to straight after this, Aston.
Definitely.
Now you've broken my dreams. Okay, we had another great question, which was Brendan was asking, how do you get any better at creating briefs? You called it out as something marketers generally aren't good at. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, budget tips for briefs. So again, be really clear cut about your goals. Be able to explain that to any creative team that you're working with. So not only goals in terms of certain KPIs that you're trying to accomplish, specifically, who your target audience is, your specific messaging for that, and then also, like I mentioned, think in terms of video. Think in terms of here's the video style that we like, and here's the video that we're going after, and be able to have some reasoning behind why this video style is the one that you're wanting to move forward with. What's the benefit of doing lifestyle content over doing UGC content? So being able to express why for a certain target audience you're looking at creating that style of video is going to help a lot. And then again, looking at those references for past creative that you've worked with, where you saw the performance, I'm trying to think what else. And then other things that you like in terms of, like I said, tone, delivery, the way that the talent is acting, things like that. So if you can get really clear cut on, the pieces that you have that will make you successful, that's when you can get, like we mentioned, that's when creators really love collaborating with brands, because when they have those pieces, they can bring more creativity, they can bring more information, they can bring more, They can bring more ideas to the table. Clear cut about the goals, always think and use video, and those high level concepts. Don't get too married to concepts, have some high level concepts, some reasoning behind them, but then also be open-ended to how those things might change, especially as you're moving into looking to, produce libraries of footage. Yeah. Not always is maybe the narrative longer form content what's going to serve you. Maybe it's some of the shorter things that you can piece together over time. So by using those open-ended concepts, you can, not getting married to those like narrative structures, there's more that you can actually do in that time with the video that you're capturing.
Okay, great advice. Everyone has no excuse now on this webinar for bad briefs after that. Let me ask one more question, because we're quite close to time. So Alexa has asked, how many videos do you typically see brands create when they're doing their first video marketing campaign?
Yeah, so there's no set number of videos that you should be making. It all is going to depend on the objectives and the platforms that you want your ads to run. So obviously, if you are running across more platforms and you're optimizing for more platforms, you're going to need a higher amount of video. But if you want to focus on testing, anywhere between 3 to 4 different CTAs for one set of videos might be enough. But yeah, so it's a coupling of how many platforms you're running on, what you're testing, how many versions of that you're going to test. But again, if you're focusing on your overall goals and less about how much should I be doing, but how can I accomplish a very specific goal, that'll get you to the place that you need to be, as opposed to focusing on what other brands might be doing in a similar space.
Makes sense. Always come back to the goals. So Thomas also asked, you seem really keyed into the video production space. I think that's an understatement. What really excites you about the future of video that we should know about?
Oh yeah, well, the exciting thing about video right now is we've seen how big that video has become in the advertising space, and even thinking about all of the entertainment that we have now and how much that's been growing. Video has become very, very central to the way that we communicate with each other, to the way that we advertise and everything. So we're seeing that we're coupling and beginning to couple video with more interactive spaces. So the thing that honestly makes me the most excited is seeing how video moves from being just something that you view into being something that you can interact with on a deeper level. Because then that brings a whole different amount of engagement with your target audience. It also allows us, to engage on a more personal level. And then also it's just cool to see the new technology that's coming out to facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those reaction videos in TikTok where they end up being reacted to so many times that it creates a whole new kind of work of art. Yes. Through all the reactions. Okay, so last couple of questions. So Noah asked, I heard your point about just how important pre-production is, but what do you do, and you'll be familiar with this, when you have to turn around a campaign super quick? What should you do differently?
Yeah, so so that's interesting. When you're turning around a campaign super quick, it's probably better actually to go against most of what I've been saying, to focus on one single concept. If the real goal at that point in time is to just get something out for a really quick launch, think through exactly what that concept is going to be in order to find exactly what you're going to run. And then also it's more important in that instance to do all of your storyboarding and your shot lists. In those situations, that's definitely something that I wouldn't skip over, because if you're trying to get something out really quickly, the more succinct that you can be and the more that you can just say, hey, I need the shot. I don't have a lot of time for collaboration. Here's the story, here's the shot list, or here's the sort of deliverable that I'm looking for. I need this number of deliverables. This is what I want to be seen in each one. And let's just go out and capture it. Ideally, and also that's when that brief comes really handy. Because sometimes at QuickFrame, we have clients that need to turn around things fairly quickly. And so in those situations, it's even more important to have a very, very robust brief. So I recommend spending twice as much time on a brief for something that you need to turn around later. That you need to turn around super early, just to make sure that there are no questions. And then in that situation, I would be very prescriptive with your concepts, just to say, this is the shot list, this is the storyboard, this is what we need to capture, these are the deliverables, and this is what we need to see in it.
Great. Focus. Mm-hmm. And last question that we have time for before we have to finish up. Katie asked, do you have any brands that you look to as really good models of brands creating creative video that you think are worth checking out?
That's a good, well, actually, I don't have a specific brand, but what I'd recommend is, especially if you're a brand that's advertising towards a younger audience, to look at TikTok. Because the name of the game, specifically for TikTok, and something that I think is going to be more prevalent across other platforms, is creating content that does not feel as if you are being advertised to. So more importantly than I think looking at a specific brand that might be doing something very specifically, I look at any brand that is focused on creating content that is native to a platform and appears as if it isn't content at all. So if you ever find yourself on TikTok and you're halfway through watching a video and then you realize it's an ad, that's a brand that I would go back and look at their other channels, look at other things that they're doing, just so you can really start to get an understanding of what does it mean to create advertising content that does not feel like advertising. And that's going to be the biggest thing that'll help you in terms of observing someone else's work.
Perfect. Well, Aston, we're out of time, and we know that actually one of the things about video productions is you do really have to run on time. So we can't go over, and that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much. I think I learned today that everything is pretty much about great preparation. You don't need to have the world's largest budget, and sometimes you can be more creative if you don't, and you have to draw on other people's creativity. But it always really helps if you're the world's best prepared. So I don't know if I'm ready for Hollywood yet, Aston, but I think I'm definitely better going to be a lot better at my TikToks, my Reels, and that's probably actually more useful for me right now. Aston, thank you. You've been amazing. For everybody watching, thank you for joining QuickFrame and Advertising Week. We will be sharing a link to the webinar afterwards. So if you missed anything and you want to catch up, or you want to share it with anyone who you think is stressed by their video production, you definitely can. Thank you so much, Aston, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.